guys, I'm Dylan Cordoba. I go to school at Phillips Exeter Academy. You might know it as a school right next to yours. Actually, we're really close. We're like 5 minutes, like walking distance from you guys. Um, and yeah, I'm in the 10th grade, and today I'm gonna be reading a book to you guys about something that's really important to me, and I hope you guys enjoy it. First, I'm gonna tell you why I chose this book for you guys. Then I'm gonna read the book. So I chose this book to you guys because um, the story in this book is almost the same story that I went through. I was born in Colombia, South America. It's very, very, very south of the United States. Yeah, so I was born in Colombia, and I spent 7 years of my life. So I grew up in Colombia as well. And then in 2011, when I was 7 years old, almost a little bit older, or maybe even the same age as you guys right now, um, I moved to the United States. So when I moved to the United States, yeah, the elementary school was pretty far away from where we lived. And so I always had to take the bus with my grandma. It was either with my grandma or my mom. And for me, it was a really hard struggle just because most of my friends were taking like cars, or most of my friends just lived really close to the school. And so they didn't really have to go through the same journey that I went through to get to school. A lot of times I was late, or I just, yeah, a lot of times in school I was really late, and my teachers did not know what was going on, or like why I was so like constantly late. But it was because the mode of transportation um, was really hard, especially in New York City, which is where I went to school and where I live currently. Um, yeah, so in New York City, transportation is really hard, and then sometimes the transportation would arrive late. Sometimes the transportation would arrive early, and so when it arrived early, I got the chance to go to school early. But when it arrived late, I was like 10, 15 minutes late into a class, and I was really late. And so, like, my teachers got kind of frustrated at me, but at the end, I was able to like communicate with them and then tell them like what was going on. But for me, it was really a frustrating experience taking the bus, and I felt like a lot of the times I felt kind of upset. I know you guys, maybe you have felt upset before when something makes you like mad or like makes you cry. Yeah, and so I felt kind of upset, and this story relates a lot to what I feel. But I always had really good people that loved me and cared about me next to me, like my grandma and my mom, and they always reminded me and told me like why I was here, why I was going to school in the first place, and why they loved me so much, and that's why they did the ride with me. And so this is kind of what the story is about. Um, and I want to share this really special story to me, to you guys, which is a very cool thing, right? We don't get to see this every day. So we're gonna read "Last Stop on Market Street" by Matt de la Peña. If you haven't guessed by now, in South America, the language spoken is usually Spanish, and so my native language is Spanish. In Colombia, we speak Spanish, and so my native language is Spanish, and so that's why I know how to say it pretty well, Mate la Peña. But yeah, don't worry, the story's in English, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to go through that. But yeah, and this is the story. It says the author Matt de la Peña writes for Luna and her two grandmas, Roni and Grace. And then CR writes, the other author, the illustrator, the illustrator basically means the person that draws the pictures. That person says for Nana. CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. Nana, how come we don't got a car? You see CJ? It's the kid in the backseat waving at CJ. There's a kid in the backseat of the car waving at CJ, and CJ is a kid standing under the umbrella, right? And his nana's holding the umbrella. They're waving at each other, just like I'm waving at you guys. Boy, what do we need a car for? We got a bus that breathes fire, and old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you. The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the door swung open. This is so cool, right? Because it reminded me almost of my story, right? The buses in New York City are almost just like that, right? Oh, and I especially remember the times when it rained, right? Waiting for the bus in the middle of the rain. That's a lot. That's a lot. What's that I see? Mr. Dennis asked. You can see Mr. Dennis is the guy holding the coin, right? He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear, placed it in his palm. Nana laughed, her deep laugh, and pushed CJ along. Nana seems to be happy as well, right? That reminds me of my grandma. Fun times. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tooting a guitar. An old woman with curls had butterflies in her jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knit. How come we always gotta go here after church, CJ said. Miguel and Colby never have to go nowhere. But Nana said, I feel sorry for those boys, she told them. They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the Sunglass Man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat. CJ stared out of the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on either side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. How come that man can't see? And then Grandma responds, as the book says. Boy, what do you know about seeing? Nana told him. Some people watch the world with their ears. That's pretty interesting. That's so cool. That's a fact. Their noses too, the man said, sniffing at the air. That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am. Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. Two older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood in the back. Sure wish I had one of those, he said. Nana set down her knitting. What for? You got the real life thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask the man if he'll play us a song? CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. To feel the magic of music, the blind man whispered. I like to close my eyes, Nana closed hers too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus, out of the busy city. The same thing as New York City, right? Where the place where I grew up and where I went to school, New York City, where I currently am right now as well, is a very busy city. And so the transportation was kind of hectic or kind of weird and crazy, right? He saw sunset colors swifting over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. The song ended and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone in the bus clapped, even the boys in the back. Then I glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it in the man's hat. Last stop on Market Street, Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. What do we notice? What do we think that CJ's looking at, right? So I can see the beautiful buildings, right? And then one of the buildings says Basil, and then the other one has like a crown and writings on it, yellow writings on it, right? So maybe is that what CJ's looking at? He's noticing a lot of things, right? CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus, crumbling sidewalks and broken down doors. I see that too, right? Graffiti tagged windows and boarded up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. How come it's always so dirty over here? She smiled and pointed to the sky. Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what's beautiful. That's a nice way that Nana put it, right? Nana seems to be very happy and optimistic. Do you guys know what optimistic means? Let's think about that for like 10 seconds. I'm going to count you guys down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So optimistic to me means someone that's just very happy, always very happy, and thinks of the positive side to it, or something happy about what's happening, right? And Grandma's telling him, CJ's saying, why is it always so dirty? But Grandma's saying, well, maybe if you know what dirty is and you know how dirty looks, then you'll be able to see what's beautiful and tell the difference between what's beautiful and what's different. And that's a really cool way that Grandma put it for CJ, right? CJ saw the perfect rainbow arcing over their soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he never even thought to look. You see, CJ's recognizing what I just said, which was that Nana was always putting it in a beautiful way, right? And look at that rainbow as well. Do you guys notice that rainbow at the top of the buildings? He looked all around them again, at the bus rounding the corner of sight, and the broken street lamps still lit up bright, and the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, I'm glad we came. What do we notice? Who's CJ waving at? He's waving at, it looks like he's waving at people in the inside of the place. I don't know, where are they, right? Let's think about that. He thought his Nana might laugh, her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, me too, CJ. Now come on. Oh, that's the end of the book. Let's go back to this picture, though. Where are they? What are CJ and his grandma doing? Let's think about that. I mean, talk to someone next to you, right? So you can pause the video and think about this question that I'm going to ask you. What are CJ and his grandma doing? Feeding people. Or does it look like they're feeding people? Yeah, there's people on a line, and they're serving food. They got like a cap. Do you see that, guys? They have something white on top of their head. Do you see that? It looks like some type of cafeteria, but it's not really, right? It looks like something more interesting. You know what I think it is? I think it's a soup kitchen. Do you guys know what a soup kitchen is? Yeah, maybe some of you guys don't know what it is. Maybe some of you guys do, but the soup kitchen is a place where you go and you volunteer. You guys know what volunteering means? Volunteering is when you go and do something for free, or you're willing to do it. So they go and they volunteer at a place called a soup kitchen. And basically what they do is that they serve food to people that need food and that don't have as many as, or don't have as much as they do, right? And you know what's so cool about this story, right? CJ and his grandma are volunteering, right? But at the beginning, we see that CJ and his grandma don't have much themselves, right? Because they're taking a bus, right? We can see that grandma just can't afford a car, or maybe someone else is using a car. So in my experience, why I had to take the bus all the time to school was because my dad was working and he was using the car. So maybe that's the case in the grandma, right? Or maybe they just can't afford a car, right? They don't have much themselves, right? And we could see that they're still offering themselves to volunteer at the end. Or maybe you guys have heard of this, but I live by this rule, and I'm in the 10th grade, right? And I have a little sister that's maybe a little younger than you guys, but I also try to teach her this. And the rule is the golden rule. Have you guys heard of this? The rule is treat others how you want to be treated. This is so important. You know why? Because nobody wants to feel alone, right? You guys think CJ wants to feel alone because he doesn't have a car, or maybe because him and his grandma have to take the bus all the time? No, right? CJ clearly wants to be invited. He wants to feel like the other people, right? You could see there's a moment on the bus, right, where CJ's asking grandma, why do we have to do this? Or why can't that man see on this page? We could see it, right? Or when he's asking his grandma, why do we always, he says, how come we always got to go here after church? CJ said. You see that? So CJ's clearly kind of like complaining or telling his grandma that he doesn't like it, right? But his grandma's always reminding him of the positive, and that's super important, right? Keep being positive and just showing or looking at the brighter side of things, because there's people that have less than us, right? And we could see that at the end, right? There's people that have less than CJ and his grandma, which is the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. Thank you, guys. I've been Dylan, and I'm a student at Phillips Desert Academy. And yeah, this was Last Stop on Market Street by Matt de la Peña. It's a really fun book. I love this book, and that's why I shared it with you guys. Thank you for listening to me today. Thank you.